Rory's going to join us as soon as he gets off the phone. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could please rise, or however you do it from wherever you are. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, start by seeing if we have any public comment. I see we have a guest today with us. Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hello.
Good to see you. Hope you're
Nice to
well.
see you as well.
Awesome. So hearing and seeing no public, we'll go ahead and continue with our agenda. The first topic we were going to hit today is sort of an update from the Selectman's office and from Town Hall. We're looking to see sort of where we are on our annual goals and if there's any changes or adjustments that we need to be aware of. We may need to table that item until Rory can join us, unless Anne-Marie, you're prepared with that information. Essentially, we had sent a list of goals over the past couple of meetings, and I know things have been a little topsy-turvy with transitions and quarantine and all those fun things that make 2020 the delight that it has been. And we were hoping to get an idea on where the various departments and cross-functional teams were with their 2020 objectives. So we're going to kind of take that and start to fold it into what we're doing going forward. So so once we get a handle on how everyone's doing with their goals, then we're going to start looking at our next steps as a commission. And I sent almost everyone on this call, Anne-Marie, I don't know that if Rory forwarded it to you, sort of an outline of what I kind of feel like our next steps are for the next 6 weeks and leading into our end of the year report for the Board of Selectmen. So we traditionally present the end of the year, sort of where we're at. And I would like to do that despite the year. I think that, and I'm optimistic that we're going to have good stuff to report. And if nothing else, then, we can say, okay, this is how we're going to adjust based on the events of this year and moving into next year. So that's in broad strokes what I hope to talk about today. So we lost Rory still. So did everyone get the documents that I sent to them for review? It was 4.
Yeah, Kathy, did you get my reply with some of the changes?
I did, and actually I have that available for us to refer to today. So.
Okay. Yeah, you did a great job starting it out, and then I was just kind of thinking some of the things that we could probably add that would make sense from a filtering and how you can filter through the strat plan. So
yeah, Bob, I thought your updates made a lot of sense. I think it's going to be helpful.
Agree. I just wanted to put something, put pen to paper and give us a starting place.
Yep, that was perfect.
Anticipating that it would be merely that. So.
And then we added a legend as well, so that we can, at least everybody's working off the same legend for the color coding and stuff.
Sure. Let me see. Maybe we'll just jump to that right now and get that up here. Hold on. Give me a moment. So everyone should be able to see a spreadsheet. And this is by Bob's iteration of the original that I had presented. And essentially, Emery, what this is a dashboard or a scoreboard, if you will, that you refer to throughout the course of your planning period that tells you basically what's going on and what state it's in. So you have different columns, including, which department is this task living under? And within that department, who is the owner of this particular item? Who's the person we're going to go to for updates? What is it we're asking them to do? When do we think it's going to be completed? When do we think, when was it completed? Or does the acting team, and please, Bob, correct me if I don't explain any of this completely correctly, where it is right now, and then comments or things that might impact or affect the completion of the goal.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let me add to the way it was designed, because we have a 10-year plan. I figured we can put it in any one of these columns is filterable. So let's say we put the expected year of completion as 2025. You can have it in the overall plan, but then we can filter. If you press the just a standard filter, you could actually pick what year, because those years will show up in there as we start entering those years you want to have shown on the screen, and it'll only be those cells. And then those years, if you pick 2000, let's say 2021, we're going to set up for 2021. That year, that's the most important thing, where we enter the completion months in, so that we at least per the quarters, if they report on them, we can see if they're making progress as expected or not. Does that make sense? And then the only thing you need to really report on, if everything's making progress, you make it green, you don't have to report on it. But if it's something you're going to slip, where you're not going to make that date, then you want to give the reasons why and effectively give a new date at that time if you're going to miss the date that you've assigned to. Does that make sense? That's the intention. So that it allows for, there's going to be things that slip. So, and that's okay, as long as we keep track on the why and what the new date to complete would be. Or, that one of the actions we put on hold, actually you had it on there, it's a hold. You just say it's a hold, we're not doing it, and there's a reason why that the task is on hold or terminated. So it's very definitive within the plan. The plan was set up for 10 years. All the items are in there, and then you're just making progress against what you've said you were going to do. And some things are going to make it, and some things are going to fall out. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So the legends actually would define, if it's green, it's on progress, ahead of goal, and will be completed on the date that's assigned. If it's in yellow, you're making progress, but you're not you're not going to meet the date that you've assigned to it. So you have to add a new date of when you're going to assign. If it's red, you're not going to meet it in that fiscal year. You're not. And then, or if it's on hold. And then when it's completed, you add the date that it's completed in that blue color. So it seems complex, but once you get into a rhythm, it really truly makes sense, so that you're identifying the things you're going to work on over the course of the year. And then you're just giving progress on it in quarters. And then we can I just use an example. That's not real. I just use an example of how we can fill out how many tasks we're going to do in that year, how many tasks are active and working per quarter, how many are incomplete, and then how many we put on hold. And at the end of the year, that should give you your final bar, which basically says I completed X percentage of the tasks I said I was going to complete. And it could be a pie chart, bar chart. It really doesn't matter. I just threw something in there just to give it some visuals. So what this, sorry.
No, so I think what will be really important with this is, as we progress year over year, hopefully showing, a nice neat progression of things that are being, of goals that are being met. And I think that'll read well. You know,
Yeah, I put it per period. I mean, it could be per quarter. It really doesn't, I just did it out per period. It can be a quarterly review. It doesn't really matter how we do it.
Mhm.
But we all have to recognize that you're going to sign up for tasks and some of them are just going to fall outside. These are done in 1 year windows, right? It's almost like the agile process. You're going to do things in a shorter window span. I mean, theoretically it would be even shorter than that in agile, right? But you're going to, if you're looking at it from a 10-year perspective, we're going to look at things year on year and progress on those yearly items. A true agile, as we all know, I mean, you know, Stefan, you know, and Kathy, those are 2 week cycles, you know, so it's different, but the concept is the same.
exactly. Just breaking it down into manageable chunks,
Correct.
whatever those chunks are. Make sense?
Stefan, are you, I mean, is it overcomplicating what we're doing, or do you think we can manage this?
I mean, we have a lot of intimate knowledge of this, so it's not complicated to us. But I also don't think it's very complicated to other people. I think you could understand that we have a bigger list and we're breaking it into a smaller list that's actually actionable over a shorter period of time. I think it's a good concept.
Yeah, and Anne Marie, one of our thoughts is, you know, inevitably we really want to get this down to the department owners as their yearly tasks, right? So, you know, community service, whoever it is, those are the items that are tasked to that person. And then quarterly, we just go and say, okay, how are you doing with all activities and sports events placed in community service website? Was it done? And then in this case, it was done. I did mark it blue. I didn't know what date it was done, but I know they did that. And then that would be a defined goal completed. And then those other items for that individual, we would go on a quarter by quarter basis, or you guys would, Anne Marie, you could use the sheet to figure out what their progress is against the strat plan.
And I think also one thing to note is that as, say, community services completes all their tasks in the first month because they're just rock stars. Or if they say, you know, it would be really cool and we'd really like to do ABC, and that can just get dropped into this dashboard.
Well, yeah, well, what you can do, so if you move over a little bit on that screen, if you can, Kathy. So because it's a 10-year plan, you're going to have items expected completion in 2021, 2022, 2023. You know, we're only going to monitor the year, but that doesn't mean that if they've made headway or they've made progress that they can't pull something in from 2022 if it made sense. So, you know, from a filter perspective, you know, I think that there's more work we have to do to define when some of these things we would expect. Again, we're gonna take a wild ass guess and pretty much put some dates in there, right? But we know for 21 we want these items, and then everything else that goes out, we're gonna say, okay, we think that's 22, or we think that's 23, or whatever it's gonna be. Then you can filter through. You know, from a filter perspective, you can filter community service and filter all their items from 2000. Well, I don't know how much we have left in our 10-year plan. We have what, 4 years left, or
Yeah, about.
Or right. So they can look at all the tasks until 2025, but realistically, they're only going to be responsible for 2021. So this way, you have the flexibility of pulling like we would in Agile, right? You would pull in things in the backlog to, you know, to take the next, you know, to take a next action on if they made that much progress.
Right.
You know,
it's also possible that things are going to get done outside of the 1 year plan, just as a byproduct of something else, or just because it pops up and becomes more urgent all of a sudden. So that's, you know,
correct.
People need to understand that they shouldn't forego the opportunity to make other progress if it's readily available to them.
Correct.
So
I mean, a new item can be added in the same breath. We can add a new item to the plan, right? I mean, we just have to put and whenever you add a new item, it's a new expected completion date and then, you know, a new commitment. So
I was going to ask that if you can always add to this list.
Yes. As long, and then the key with that though too is it's got to be once you've signed up, you have a start date. So you're putting an initial date to that, and it has to be rolled out to whoever the task owner is. But yes, you could add it at any time.
You know, we've talked about tying in the strategic plan with periodic performance reviews and that kind of thing. So when we're doing departmental goal setting, you know, the strategic plan represents the administration's, the town's goals. Ideally, we want our department heads to be generating their own, right? So they can and should be working on both at the same time. Whether or not we include it in, you know, the strategic plan, they can be working on their own projects outside of it.
I mean, if culturally, you're hitting on an important point, Rory, because I'm going to give you a use case example. Even with my team, when we started this years ago, you know, everybody was not bought in. I mean, they were kicking and screaming. But what happened was I put those tasks one for one, item for item in their performance plan. So it built a culture that the strategic plan was a one for one, you know, replica of their personal plan. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, man, they all bought in pretty quick because there were some ramifications if they didn't follow it. So I don't want to say I kind of forced it as a culture, but once they understood what it meant, they were all bought in. They said, "This is great. It's in front of us. We know what we have to do for, you know, the year."
You build accountability into the system.
And this way, that culturally they bought in, and I've been using it for 10 years in the same manner, and it's been very successful for my team.
Well, that gives you a roadmap. You know, there's no surprises. You know, you know that if you haven't ticked the boxes on your plan, then when you sit down for your review, there shouldn't be any surprises.
Well, like I got guys that would have never added items. They come in, like when we set up their year, they're adding items. They say, "I want to do this, this, and this." They're adding their own now because they can see the value from it. You know.
Awesome.
So if we can do the same thing in Seymour with the department heads, so they can understand the value of making it visible, make sure people recognize what you're doing, and it's part of your performance plan, and it's visible, and people could see the progress, right? That would be the goal from this.
I think it also encourages a dialogue, because otherwise I think goals can be set in a vacuum, you know? So if you set a goal and I, as the task holder, you know, says, "Hey, you know, I'd love to do this, but I need X budget, or I need Y resource." Now I have an opportunity to raise my hand if it's something that, you know, has a contingency in order to be completed. So I think doing it this way also encourages that dialogue of, yeah, you know, this is amazing. I would love to be able to do this, but, you know, we tried doing this for the past 3 years and there's no money for the equipment we need, whatever, making it up. So.
Well, and that's the other thing too, you know, once we're done, and let's say we take, I don't know, I'll pick one here, create a 10-year heavy equipment inventory, develop and deliver equipment replacement plan. Okay, if that was done properly, the first selectman and should be able to, in a 10-year window, show cost savings, improvements, whatever it is. So when we're talking about the strategic plan, we said, well, 10 years ago, we set this up, and now this is what it used to be, and this is what it is today, and they can show a progress, state of progress to the town. So, you know, from a board perspective, from the board of selectmen, when I look at it from a board perspective, selectmen, I'd love to have be able to communicate to the town that, you know, actions we took 10 years ago, 5 years ago are resulting in this benefit. And you could use the plan as that. That's why the dashboard's important, right? Because there's other things I didn't add to the dashboard is really, you know, you want to see the progress over the lifespan of the whole strat plan. I only did that kind of reporting window for 1 year, but the goal or the real dashboard that's got to spill out of that is when we're done in 10 years, what did it generate? What did it produce and how effective was it?
Right.
And then, and as it grows, because you want to ideally, and I think, I don't know, I'm more apt to more shorter term stuff. Again, as you guys know, Agile, and I like the short term wins. So I would be looking at this as a yearly, instead of the 10-year plan. You might do a 5-year plan with really thorough 1-year windows versus kind of this, versus a 10-year plan that you really can't get the vision out of. You shorten it up and you make them real term goals. I think that it might be more effective for us moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something we can do, looking to 21. And that's definitely something we can do going to 21 and
10-year plans are hard because the things can change. Listen, 10-year plan, COVID, the impact that COVID would have, like just the heck I had on this year. It's pretty hard to, some of the unknowns that a 10-year plan might not be able to, foresee. I think that's why a good 5-year plan that's definitive, gives vision and scope, you can always build on it to move out to future years. I think that's something that's we should think about at a later state.
For sure. For sure. So I think this looks great. I definitely think it's a much better place for us to start than where we were. So
Kathy, did you only put on this year's goals?
I did. I was looking at it over just the 1 year.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. I wasn't 100% sure, because what we should probably do is put all the goals on there, and then we could use the filtering, so it kind of gives it more of that whole look and feel of the whole plan,
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. Yeah, I have to admit I was being a little short-sighted and just saying, okay, well, how did we do in 2020 in preparation for sort of wrapping the year and starting to look to next year?
Kathy, it was perfect. That's not. Yeah, I just think that we really should probably look at it over all the tasks that we have in there.
Yeah, I think I may need
in the past ones that are complete, and use this to complete some of the stuff, and then the things that move forward.
Yeah, we'll have to go back, Rory, through some previous iterations of the plan, because I know that over the course of the past, probably 3 years solid, things have been reorganized and sliced and diced and, condensed and expanded. So we really weren't thinking about the plan in an agile way at all. But I think we can go back and sort of pick a point in time that seems to make sense, and try to fill in as much as we can, from the larger plan.
Anne Marie, is this resonating? Will this help you?
Sorry, I had to go off on mute. This looks great. This does help. I'm a very visual person, so I need to see. This looks great. This will help me. I think it will help everybody in going forward, as well as to seeing what our plan is, what needs to be done, the goals that are set, expectations. The goals look that they're achievable. So.
And I do think, Emery, going into 21, we're getting to the point now over the next two months, December, January, maybe into early February, preferably December, January, where we'd be looking to add goals that yourself or the board want to see included as part of the, sort of the highest level. And then ideally we'd be going into the teams and having them push things up and how do we get here? So.
No, I think that's great. I believe your committee normally comes in the beginning of the year to show us where you were, where you are, and what we have for the year. So I think that'd be good if we get you guys in the January, February timeframe.
Well, I was hoping that we could wrap 2020 in December and then move toward thinking to 21, because you don't want to delay it and then issue a plan for the year 21 and people feel like they don't have enough time to complete the goals. So that would be just one thing we'd want to think about. And, and keep in mind, and if we wrapped in January, now we're going to be going to the selectmen and saying, hey, what do we need to add to the plan? That goes into February. We may not be rolling it out till March, if that's okay. But that would just be something to think about. That's you.
Thank you. No, that's true. That then by March you're rolling it out. So if you come to us in December, we're able to roll it out middle of January, beginning of February, which gives us 2 months.
Right. I mean, I also think that if we can come in December, I do believe, and Rory, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to be able to deliver some positive news, because I think we've talked about how despite things, there has been movement, and that might be a good message to communicate. So now, Rory, were you able to, do we have an update at this point on where we are? I know you've been out.
I have the most recent update. Let's see. I believe we did late October.
Okay.
So there's been some movement from the last time I gave you an update, but not much, because at that point, the main focus had become COVID again, and everybody kind of trying to look forward and be prepared for what was coming. We have one more staff meeting. Let's see. The plan is to present the first Board of Selectmen meeting. So that'd be December 1st.
I feel like I could present on December 1st, if that made sense, or later. December, again, a lot depends on where you are with the update. I mean, if we can take an October update, if we can distill some information from it, I don't have an issue presenting December 1.
The next staff meeting is scheduled for December 14th, which would be the day before the second Board of or 2 days before the second Board of Selectmen meeting in December. So probably not worth waiting for a December update.
Okay. All right. And if we have things that are still in process, or that we're waiting an update on, we'll just say so. We lost Bob. All right. So I would like to share something else that I've been working on, and hopefully this will kind of put some color behind at least my thinking. And I did send this out to the committee.
Sorry about that. My Computer flaked.
All right. At least in my mind, this is sort of how I'm thinking about our next steps. And I just felt like, at least if I could sort it out in my head and maybe, get some feedback, and then at least we'd all be on the same page, sort of, theoretically, it might be helpful. So, we're going to want to figure out where we are, which is essentially, the current status of the 20 goals, which is something that, Rory will be able to help us with. And we're going to go back to October, it looks like. Make sure that everything is clear. Again, we've had things flipping around and going back and forth, so we can just do an edit on that. And then present to the Board of Selectmen. So what happened in our 2020 plan cycle and I think it's an important data point to note how COVID impacted the completion of goals, because I think that seeing how a plan and how tasking individuals or individual departments with tasks can weather extraneous circumstances. So I'd be interested to look at that. And then how do we adjust? I think one thing that is important for us and anybody is to be able to be nimble. So, if there's any learnings we can take away from it, I think that's important to communicate.
Yeah, even as we set up 21 goals, we don't want to set up it depends on the findings, right? Depends on how many actions and tasks we put out there in 20 and whether they were complete or not. And then, do we keep the same number that we had set up for 20? So it kind of might help us to identify, to either put more or less on, depending on the findings.
Yeah, any data is good data. So I think even looking at the process as a data point is important. If there's anything we can take out of 2020 is we have to learn something from it, and at any opportunity. So that's sort of what I'm hoping to do. Hopefully we will never have to deal with something like this again, and we'll not have to deal with it for very much longer. But how cool would it have been if we had already planned for it?
What I'll say as a general point is one of the things that we've talked about and tried to build into the plan is increased resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID has kind of forced us to reckon with that and build our systems, whether it's just, ensuring that people are cross-trained, that we have like sustainable staffing models, all that kind of thing. So it's kind of a general goal that may not be directly addressed in our 1 year points, but if there's a silver lining in terms of how municipal government has functioned, that can be one of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, business in general. Look how many companies have learned that people really can work from home, and they can be efficient and effective. So we have that. The other thing we wanted to work on is really transitioning this goal setting to the internal teams. And I did send around sort of I think it was maybe 5 or 6 slides. It was very short, just a little PowerPoint that I can turn into a quick video or a VO PowerPoint, something like that, that just says, hey, this is what we're talking about when we talk about Agile and, breaking things down into chunks. And I use the analogy of baking a cake. If you want a cake, you don't just go cake in front of the stove and out comes a cake. You have to do steps, and you have to do steps in order. And, provided you do those steps, you're going to end up with something vaguely resembling a cake. So trying to make it a simple and accessible concept for people who may or may not be familiar with it. So
I think we brought it up in the last meeting too, if it was any assistance that we could provide, Rory, as you're talking to department heads when they're thinking about, taking ownership of the process and creating goals and stuff like that. If there's anything we can do to help, I know that was one of the things we brought up.
Yeah, onboarding support.
Yeah, looking at this, the document that Kathy has up, sort of in a rollout plan, is because it will be, I assume, a matter of familiarizing, those of us who may not have had experience with strategic planning before coming on the committee had been eased into it and learned through experience. There's going to have to be some training and teaching up front. And so, any guidance and support in terms of how we can roll out the process. Fortunately, I have the book that I shared with you all over the summer that I can use as a starting point. But I know we meet monthly, and I can reach out to you guys if I need any support in between.
Anytime. And I think we can certainly, speaking for myself, if you need specific materials, if you're like, hey, I'd really like a brochure, or hey, I'd really like a, I don't know, song and dance number. I might not be able to help you with that, but
Yeah, you could.
I heard you had a background in burlesque shows.
Exactly.
that would get their attention. I'm just saying.
I can picture it now. I'm trying not to, but
You don't want to.
Come on, Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like talking about Kurt. Sorry. Not yet. That was funny.
It's a little less stressful to put you in a dress.
Not happening. Well, I wear dresses, but that's not happening.
So, but anyway, doing easy little videos, little animated animations or VO PowerPoints are fairly simple and straightforward. And
I may have some generic PowerPoints we use for some of that training too, or
yeah. So maybe, we can put it on an agenda item to specifically speak to the onboarding program in detail. We're sort of talking about it conceptually, but talk about it, how we're going to execute it, break it down into some tasks, that we can, all, make sure that you have what you need, that we can, get people moved over. Is I think once people understand the concept, it's not too hard for most people to wrap their heads around. If we speak in, in jargon and, abstractions, sure. But if we go, hey, you're just literally going to do this, and then you're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as scary. So, all right. I think the one sort of important point we would want to make sure we hammer home, though, is that data is going to be collected and people are going to be expecting to see how you're doing. We're not, a lot of times things are handed out and then people move on with their lives and it gets moved to the side. And, Bob handled that fantastically by putting it into employees' performance reviews. That whether people, whether that happens on the municipal level is not our call. But, making sure at least that people know that we're going to be looking to see, hey, how you doing? And at the end of the year, we want to be able to celebrate your wins, I think is important.
Well, the former performance evaluation system that we had in place, it felt like just ticking boxes. It felt like we were just doing the process because the process was there. And so tying it to something like this that actually has substantive value, I think will go a long way to, whether the employees enjoy it or not, we'll see, but we'll at least add value through the process rather than just make it a, following the course.
Right. And I think it behooves us as a commission to be predictable in our check-ins and to walk the talk. If we say we're going to be looking for quarterly updates, then on the quarter we need to ask for updates. And I think that's part of the culture shift. People know that, all right, that, we're getting to the end of a quarter and those yahoos are going to be asking for an update, then it won't be a surprise.
Sure.
Another important part to it is to pace it through the year so that they're not just running up everything in the B12, Q4, trying to get everything done in all one lump. You want them to, that's why you would make sure that those tasks are put into periods. And it's okay if they miss, because they can pull one in, they can miss one. It doesn't really matter until the end of the year, but at least that there's some visibility on the fact that each quarter you want to get something done.
Right.
Independently of what you pick at the beginning of the year. I mean, a lot of times what happens with our plan, like something may fall through and we know we're not gonna make one of our items. We'll pull something in that we knew we were gonna do in Q3 that we just put out there and we knew we can get done in one, take the benefit of getting it done in Q1 and know that the one we're gonna move out, we're gonna move another one to Q3. So you got the flexibility of moving things over the course of that year, as long as they're all done. But at least per quarter or per period, you're actually talking to somebody about their progress. I think that's the most important thing, that you're always bringing up that, hey, you're working on this, how you doing on it, where are you? And it stays in their mind, and then, because a lot of times when I've seen plans go out when we first started and, everybody closed their eyes and then, P12 was here and no one was done on anything and we were rushing to get things done, especially in the beginning. So kind of teaching them in the beginning that that's not the way to achieve it, to try and do it over the course of the year is important.
Right. It's a lot less painful that way. You can work on it in little bits instead of this big rush at the end. So.
But if you do the reporting, like I think the key was, because we weren't doing the reporting like that. So once we started doing those checks we do them every period, but they could have been every quarter. It forced people to say, oh, where am I on that project? What did I do? And then they at least get, and then you could talk about obstacles. What are they running into? And you can get that done early so that you don't miss at the end of the year.
Exactly. Make sense? All right. So the other thing that I did is I kind of just said, well, what might a timeline for 2021 look like? And this was just a sort of stream of consciousness kind of thing. So there's nothing here that's even etched in dirt. It's genuinely just stream of consciousness. So, January we go to the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, what do you want to do? We get some input. And we tee that up actually in December. I said, when I wrap up 2020, I say, okay, I'm going to come back next month. And, we're going to be looking for some feedback from you.
So do you think, Kathy, we can move that? I mean, because from a collective BOS input, if you don't really have to meet with them to ask them to look at the strat plan and give feedback before the end of year of what they want for their goals over the year, right? I mean, all I'm saying is that maybe you collect them, but I think you would give it to them early so that we can kind of look at them and say, okay, what do you think we want to do, to give you feedback, so that we're kind of moving that in a little bit, so it's not out in March that people are getting goals like we mentioned before, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely collect it earlier.
If we're gonna go on calendar year, then maybe we want to have, at least by January, some framework of what we want done, so we can get it more solidified in February, so there's more time to get tasks done over the course of the year.
I think we can definitely look at anything that fell off in 20 and start there.
You know, that's a good point.
I'm not sure. So when we created these goals previously, it was based on a large body of data that we had collected over years, really. So, you know, we're not going through that process again. So I'm struggling a little bit with figuring out what we base our recommendations on. So my thinking, at least in this, was, okay, well, here's the stuff that is going to carry over from 2020 to 21 and possibly beyond.
You know, what I would say is, you know, ideally, Kathy, are you talking about just this coming year, or generally and eventually?
I would say yes to all. So if somebody comes, you know, one of the selectmen says, I want to put a monorail in downtown Seymour, and everybody thinks that's a great idea. You know, that's something that's going to be broken down over years. If somebody says, I want to paint all the street signs magenta, and everybody thinks that's a great idea, that becomes a 1-year goal or a 2-month goal. I don't know how long it takes to change street signs. So part of what I'm trying to do is to encourage buy-in from the board and get support, because they have some skin in the game. These are ideas they want. We're taking feedback. I don't know that we're the right group of people to be coming up with goals. At least I'm not. So
Well, there could be some recommendations, right? I mean, inevitably they have to sign up for them. So if we kind of went through and did a first pass from a recommendation standpoint, and then they can adjust as they need to. I don't know if that hurts, right?
no, I mean, so recommendations from whom?
Our board. The strat plan was put together, right, with somewhat with some timelines in mind. So we take what we have right now. I think what would be good, that's why I think a good start for us is, from our board perspective, let's just get all the items down and put all the dates down and get some visualization out to see what's out there and what we still need to do. And this way we can make a recommendation to the board of what might work, and then they can tailor it and change it. But if we get the spreadsheet done, I think that'll help us get there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to give us a place to start, you know, knowing where we are today. You know, and maybe from that we can, you know, I agree, we need to really see where we are right now. But I definitely would love to engage the Board of Selectmen in the process.
Oh yeah, you want their. I'm not saying you wouldn't want their input. I'm more saying just kind of get them kickstarted so they understand what we're doing, and then they can tailor it from that point on.
correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, it's not really on the Board of Selectmen to give us a whole bunch of new items to add to this list right now. It's the list should be elicited from department heads, and Board of Selectmen can add things whenever they'd like, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to jump to the top of the queue.
Correct.
I would agree with Stefan on that. It's almost like setting your own goals, so the department heads would set their own goals as well. When you're doing your own performance, when you sit down with your boss and you say, okay, what are your goals and what are your expectations? Where do you want to be at the end of 2022? You as the employee are telling your boss, well, this is what I would like to see. So it's like the department heads, like Stefan says, department heads setting their own goals, and the Board of Selectmen just giving their opinions or their thoughts on it.
Yeah, just to one thought though, is typically there's a theme from the management of what they want to achieve over the course of the year.
Mhm.
And then the goals fall into those themes, because if everybody just picks what they want to do, then
Exactly.
maybe there's no correlation between the different departments. They become silos. What you want is a common theme that you're trying to achieve, and that might be from the selectmen and the board, and then the goals, and then the actions that we have in there you have to pick the ones that fit that theme. I think that's important to it. Or you're really going to have a strategy that's going to be all over the place for all the different departments.
Well, that's kind of why we operate the way we do, or at least in theory, we try to operate the way we do, right? So we elicit feedback from all of the department heads and all the stakeholders in town to add items into the plan. And we take our best shot at prioritizing the plan in consultation with you, Anne Marie, and with the board. And then on a yearly basis, we make our recommendations, and then we can certainly ask the Board of Selectmen how they feel about it. But at the end of the day, it's what we're doing is just making recommendations based on a sort of cohesive view of what needs to come next.
Yeah, Stefan, I'm saying the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So to break it down into practicalities though, gathering the data that we started with took us 2 years. Is that right, Rory? So I think what we're trying to figure out now is how do we realistically, somebody's got to define the overarching theme.
What I'm envisioning is like, we're in a transition period, right? In between, a committee-led plan to a staff-led plan. And so the question is, what do we do until we get there, right? And so my answer to that would be, kind of what we talked about before, in terms of we have this reservoir to draw from in terms of what else is already in the plan.
Mhm.
So we work on refining and breaking those items down into, achievable objectives. And that, I don't want to say like buys time, but buys time for the staff-led portion to truly get underway, and for them to start developing their own goals until we can get to the point where it is kind of an oversight, where our focus is prioritization and adding to rather than creating.
Agreed.
So I think then, our first step has to be seeing where we are, seeing what we can expand, seeing what we can break down, into completable chunks. And then Rory, how do we, I guess the piece I'm not, and this may just be a lack of contact with on a daily basis with the teams that, you have contact with. Yes, when you sit down with your boss, you say, this is where I want to be. But at least in my experience, the boss always also turns to me and says, well, this is the goal we're working toward. It's a two-way. So I think I'm just want to make sure that we're not encouraging that we're encouraging people to do things that are globally beneficial on the larger scale. So
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think for better or worse, because not all of what we identified in the first 1 year plan was accomplished. We can, this was a 1 year item. You guys will have had 2, so they really better be done. And that's what's coming down from management, as well as, anything else that's identified in terms of smaller action items. And what we were talking about earlier in terms of since the strategic plan has been created, right? It's not like Kurt only pursued items that were in the strategic plan, right? So there's other things going on that are brought up just by, whatever's happening more broadly, the priorities of the first selectman or other board members. I don't think there will be a shortage.
Yeah, those should be added to the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't do it in the past, but they should absolutely be added. Because what you want from that is if you do make plan additions, like something takes precedence and it has to be done, you want the advantage for the worker, right? He wants the advantage of getting the benefit of working on that task and recognizing that he had to miss something because that task took priority. So that's why you absolutely want to have those things show up. And this way, at the end of the year, it's not, hey, you didn't make you don't recognize anything that he changed the altered path on, and you didn't make any of your tasks. That'd be the worst case story for that person. But that person might have altered his whole plan to make up for tasks that were coming in that weren't part of the plan. But I think that should be considered.
And I think that's what I'm struggling a little bit with is, and I think what I'm going for with, getting input from the management is, well, we're sending them down path A, and if they're looking for path B and we're not reflecting path B anywhere, then this is just sort of an exercise.
That makes sense. And, one thing that we do internally, I think it will actually be very easy to integrate it in terms of what you're talking about. We keep an internal spreadsheet of ongoing projects so that we can keep on track with them and make we're not letting things sit for months at a time. And it sounds like really all that needs to happen is to integrate these 2 spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I think so.
And it's I think, at least for me, at the end of the day, I want to see people be successful, and I want to be able to, have whoever stands up at the end of the year to say, look at all this great stuff that's being done. And, this is what your tax dollars are paying for, is all this great stuff that's coming out and this great stuff that's happening. And if it's happening in silos or in vacuums,
no one will get visibility, right?
Yeah.
And that's been one of our biggest issues is, an important part of the strategic planning process is celebrating success, and we don't really do it. We accomplish a project, and we don't even put it out on Facebook. We just move on to the next thing. So
It'll never be embraced.
yeah.
But wouldn't it be cool, to get to a place where at the end of the year, a document, a whatever is put out and made available to the constituency that says, hey, you know what? Look at all this great stuff that you didn't even know was happening. And you're sitting here in your living room thinking that nobody does anything in town hall.
That's what that dashboard, ideally,
Yeah.
we had that dashboard on our website every quarter of the actions against the strat plan. At least people would understand there is a strat plan and that there is a, a methodology of why we do things and what's being done in town. It's not just some random thoughts that at that moment in time, there was a long-term plan that's being followed. And yeah, it's gonna be altered over time, and there's gonna be things that come in and there's gonna be things that go away. But there was a lot of thought a few years back to say, hey, we need to really strategize on what how we're going to grow as a town.
Yeah, I think we should definitely strive for like at least a yearly review, right? To put it out for people. Just like everybody said, list our accomplishments, start listing what's next, what challenges led to us missing certain goals, and just give people some insight into what's going on.
Yep.
Would it make sense, just a suggestion, would it make sense if we put it out and this is what our committee's plan is for 2021, and then do quarterly updates? Would that make sense, or do you think that'd be too much work?
That sounds like a lot to me, and it depends who would own that stuff. But I think a big at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So here's our plan, here's the goal, or here's the result.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean,
but at least they know that people are doing something.
Mid-year and an end of year.
Year end.
I think the other point to though is, and I know it is a little bit of work, but again, what we're trying to build a culture of the strat plan. So if you do it every year, you're not building culture. It's a okay, we made some headway and we'll get a little runtime at the end of the year. You really truly want to build that, even from a town perspective, the people that are working on the strat plan, the town's understanding that it's out there and it's constantly being worked, and we're progressing towards that. So I think it's important to do it. If you're not going to do it quarterly, at least mid-year and end of year.
I think quarterly, I think you can do it. You can do both. I think quarterly you can do something simple. It doesn't have to be an elaborate.
All you have to do is post the dashboard. Theoretically, if we post the dashboard, all you have to do is post it. And then maybe one at the end of the year, that's when you do kind of more of the verbal assessment or whatever you want to call it. But maybe it's just a simple, we create a nice dashboard, we create a nice window, actions completed, actions open, this is what we have done, and move on.
Yeah.
And then the people that actually have the input that put it in there will see it. Hey, my stuff's being shown. It gives it more credibility.
Yeah.
And Rory, we do the spreadsheet, and Rory, all kidding aside, here's the other thing. Do we have a team site or no for Seymour?
Microsoft Teams?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. If we make this spreadsheet, we can make this as simple as possible, so even the updates are one-click type things that would produce a dashboard for you. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be a ton of work. Ideally, it shouldn't be. You should be able to go out to your teams who own those things should just say, from a color code perspective, I'm done, I'm not done. I fill out that they get their 5 items or 10 items, whatever they're doing, they fill out where they are at that moment in time, send it back in, and we post it.
It's like because I'm only familiar with Teams in like a video conferencing format. It's basically like a Google Docs,
it's just like Slack. It's just like Slack.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we don't use anything like that, but for, at the senior staff level, at least, it would not be hard to,
Because what the reason I said that is because when I have teams, I have my report posted to my team and they're responsible to fill it out.
Mhm.
Now, you might not get there, you might just, but that point is that you have that flexibility. We can make it relatively simple for them to fill out.
again, I think if it's,
You could do it as a Google Doc.
I was gonna say, do you need a Google email address to access Google Docs? I think you do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
block.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find, we've gotten creative with free software solutions, or maybe, Rob would be the perfect person to ask about this. Because they have, I know they typically use the Google Suite in the school system,
Yep.
but we can find out.
Yeah, it just has to be.
And then you don't have a million copies of the document. It's one copy. You go up there, you fill in what you need to fill in, and you get out.
Yep. Well, it's like if we're tracking success as we go along, it's not difficult to demonstrate it. If we're going back at the end of the year and being like, what did we do this year? That's where we'll run into problems. So
If that's what we're doing, then we didn't implement it right, because
similar to what we were talking about with, building in the accountability through the performance reviews, if it's part of the standard process, that's how we'll, this becomes a sustainable change.
that's a good point. It could be simply when you do your departmental reviews, you just pull up that sheet. You're talking to that person. You're saying, okay, where are you on the actions? You fill it out for at least the first year so they get it, and it'll be done. Won't take you 10 minutes. You do it right.
Are these, and this is, hopefully it's a dumb question, are these items specifically discussed in your quarterly department head meetings?
The 1-year plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been asking people specifically, we sent the 1-year plans out, you've had them, I need you to provide me an update.
Mm-hmm. I would almost envision, the way, in at least my experience in using these sorts of plans, it's literally, you go through the list and say, okay, so community services. So where are we on, tasking people to get the volunteer database going?
Yeah, typically, the staff meeting is we go around the table. So it's, all right, Mary, you're sitting right next, go, and while you're doing it, make sure you include your updates on your 1-year plan items.
Yeah.
That's it. Listen, you bet it in there. That's perfect.
Yep. Yeah, however you use the tool. Like I said, sometimes even it's just as rudimentary as, this is the action. This is the thing I want to know specifically about.
You want them to say, I can't get it done because of this. You want to know what the obstacles are.
Yeah.
That helps. Then you know where your problem areas are.
Yep.
And I think too, if you specifically ask for things by name, I want to know item 2, and I'm going to ask you every time. And eventually one of these times you're going to come in with an answer for me. It's sort of laying out the expectation.
Yeah. Either the answer or them to say, I don't know why I'm doing this. It makes no sense to me. So you can get clarity. Those are the things you're trying to find out. Why? Because that's many times that's why things aren't done, right? Because typically it's because it's unclear, or somebody's confused, or they're overloaded. There's a million reasons, right? So at least it starts to draw out where your pain points are.
Yeah. And that goes over in this column all the way over here. Oh, you still, yeah, you can still this.
Are you showing? You're
Yeah, hold
showing
on.
outline.
Hang on. All right, hold on. Let me close this one. All right, can you see the, no, it's still paused. Anyway, so, let's try this. Boom. Yeah. Okay. Now you should see the spreadsheet again. No?
Yep.
Do you? Okay. So that's where those comments go in this column H. You know, I can't do this because
And
whatever.
this is very, this is almost exactly the format that we use for our the internal project spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
But it instead of comments, it's basically like we have a last action, next action kind of thing. So what's the last thing that was done? What's the next step?
Yeah, you could use the same. You could use it for that field. It doesn't really matter. Those are.
Yeah, but in terms of like monthly updates on each item, this is perfect, and it should be very easy then.
I think also, even if we can, get on that schedule, it will be useful for us as a board to see, how we're laying tasks out, in smaller time segments, instead of waiting for a whole half a year to find out that we just don't we don't explain things well enough. I'd rather know that in January than in June.
Yep.
Or, we find out that sports really has nothing to do with community services. It's in the finance department. I don't know.
They're very athletic, those finance types.
That's right. No, I just think all data is good data. So, all right. Back to our agenda here. So, so I think we have an understanding of the dashboard. We have an understanding of, now Rory. So we're going to present on December 1st.
Give me 1 second. Let me bring up the agenda as it stands at the moment. We can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
If that works for everybody, if the what is it, 16th is better, that's fine too. But
I mean, I'm okay with shooting for the 1st, and if something happens and we get bounced back to the 16th, then so be it. I'd rather do that than shoot for the 16th and then get bounced back into January.
yeah, which has happened, so you're probably right.
So then to that, I also sent around a first draft of the PowerPoint that I would be presenting, or we would be presenting. I'm only saying me because most of you have something else to do at that meeting. So, rather than go through the whole thing, did everyone have a chance to look at it? It's pretty straightforward. I'm not big into writing everything onto a slide. I prefer to just have sort of touch points.
Shame, I love it when people just read what's on the slides in front of me.
But in terms of the impact, this is something I would have hoped that we would be able to, we'll need to get some data, some information for me to speak about, based on what did we accomplish from the, the 2020 plan. So, Rory, if at some point you can, shoot us, or I can go back and look at October, or, however we want to do this.
I'll take a look at the dashboard you put together and just update it as best I can. If I need to, I'll reach out to people to fill it in.
Okay. And maybe if you can kind of distill it into like an executive summary, that would be hugely helpful. Or, some bullets, I don't care. Doesn't matter how the information is presented. Random thoughts, pictures, I don't care. But I'll, just so that I can.
Yeah, I'll make this a priority next week because we have, let's see, 5 working days until this presentation. So I will make it a priority next week.
Okay. I don't need a huge amount of lead time, so once, we get the information, as long as I have it before, and we all agree on what direction I'm going to be speaking, I'm not uncomfortable with doing that, so. Okay. Again, what we can break down, diving a little deeper into 2020, if we can all do it, I think will be useful. Talking a little bit more about transitioning, from external identification of goals to an internal identification of goals. And then talking a little bit about how we envision our role to change, to providing support and oversight as opposed to mechanics. And, essentially these are the people who are on the ground doing the work. It makes a lot more sense for them to be doing things. A little more detail on how what that will look like for us. And again, you all have this deck, so please take a look at it. I just timelined. This will need to be adjusted, I think. Yeah, maybe not. So again, just take a look at it. If there's anything that you would like me to change or present differently, just shoot me a note. That'd be the easiest way to do it. Asking for input. That's it. Keep it short and sweet. I don't want to be up there all day.
Okay.
Kathy, if you want me to speak to any of it, I could speak too, because I'll attend. It's up to you though. If you want to speak, I'm more than happy to sit and listen.
No, definitely. I don't want it to be the Kathy show. I'll just, so, we can touch base offline and figure out how the best way to have it be organized. I'm just a stickler for it being polished.
I like the framework is what it is right now. I mean, just get some data in there, but some information in there. But I do like the flow.
Yeah.
No, and I definitely think that there's an opportunity for us to, and Stefan, this is probably where you will be the best resource to talk about the rationale and why this is the right way to go. Because I do think we need to, we internally believe it and believe in, what we're talking about and the change we're hoping to see. But I think to be able to illustrate and demonstrate that, and Stefan, that's something you definitely can, and Bob, you can too, and you have, just in this meeting tonight, talked about how tying, visible, tangible goals to performance and how it's mutually beneficial. It's not just beneficial to the corporation or to the management, it's also beneficial to the employee as an individual. I think that's a really powerful message, because it continues to illustrate the change at town hall from being what it was 20 years ago, and what we all know town halls were 20 years ago, to this is the new way that towns are run.
And just providing more visibility to the town, and I think all those things all fall out of it,
Yeah.
So they're not thinking these decisions are made in a vacuum. There's a lot of thought towards them, and there's planning and strategy and all those things that they should understand.
Yep. It's not just random. And I think it behooves us as a commission to be that polished, professional champion of this methodology. It gives us cred. It's always all about the street cred. So
I'll make comments. I can't bite my tongue.
I'm counting on it.
You get real worked up about process. I like that. Real fired up about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think that showing enthusiasm and showing that, we're passionate about this working is important. We're not just checking boxes and, sitting around hanging out with each other because we like each other's company, which we do, but we're also trying to get stuff done.
When you show it works. If you follow it, it works, and everybody will be happier for it. So.
Yep. All right. So if you don't have it, if any of this stuff got sucked into the email void, just let me know and I'll be happy to resend it. What do we got next?
You are going to use the dashboard in one of these slides, right? Or possibly?
Yep.
At least the first run at it. I mean, it might not be the final run, but at least we should try and use something from there.
Yeah, I think that we do need to speak a bit about the methodology and the process, the process of our process. And the dashboard is a great part of that. I think that's a great sort of focal central image. This is how we're tracking, and this is how we're going to be measuring accountability. So definitely, I have made a note. The only other thing that I have to review, I sent out to most of you and referenced it earlier, was the training material, the training deck. If it were, let's see if I can get that. Again, this is just a simple thing to actually be delivered to employees who are going to be wrangling this new way of thinking. And it's a brief introduction to Agile as a concept, and then breaking the concept down into a simple tangible, using a simple example of baking a cake. And then what does that mean? What do they do? Okay, now we're asking them to create a plan for their own team. What does that look like? With, you know, how does that take shape? Reminding them that we're going to be tracking things and who tracks what. Oops. What do they do? Oh, that's it. No. Yeah, that's it. So,
And then maybe there's a slide in here, and I think, and as long as we're all in agreement that it is going to be a part of their personal plan. Is there something that identifies that?
there is not at this point, but I can certainly add it if that is the direction that the town's going to be taking.
I was going to say, yeah, if that's the intention, which I believe it would be, I think it is, then we'll have to have a slide for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, I saw a chocolate cake in there.
You know, you always have to have nice images to get people's attention. So people
Just wondering if we're going to be having cake.
virtual cake.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
No calories in virtual cake.
That's it. It's a great thing. That's a good analogy, though, about baking a cake.
Yep. It's simple.
Yeah.
And I think once you break it, explain it that way, people go, oh, okay, I get it. It's easy.
Yeah.
I think, like I said earlier, I think when you talk in terms of sprints and deliverables and action plans, it can be a little abstract until you're starting to, you know, until you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get it, it's like easy. But just drawing an analogy, I think sometimes makes it easier. So, but yeah, once we know for certain that it's going to be and do we know that for certain that it's going to be a measurement of performance? But again, this doesn't have to go anywhere today. So I agree with Bob that will need to be in there.
Yeah.
So about it on that one. So do we have any items for discussion? Anything we didn't talk about already that we should be speaking to now?
I have two things.
Okay.
I just emailed you guys. The Board of Selectmen last night reviewed the non-union employee pay plan. And so in line with our recruitment and retention items, the HR director did a salary study and created a performance evaluation system. The Board of Selectmen referred it to us since we originated the request. And so everybody has it. We can take a look at it at our leisure and maybe speak to it at the next meeting.
This is 34 pages.
Very thorough.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you just like look at the headings, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot of like charts and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
some of it is like the actual forms that would be used in the evaluation process. So it's not all that dense, but
I
they.
thought he did a great job. I mean,
Yeah, he did.
covering it all.
They wanted us to, you know, either give it the thumbs up or thumbs down and then return it to them for implementation if we agree with it. So just take a look at it. We can talk about it in December.
And this was one of the strategic action items, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really for us, it would be to potentially close one of the items out.
This, I believe the item is, you know, standardize recruitment practices to attract and retain, qualified individuals, qualified candidates, whatever it is. So
So are we reading this with an eye to, does this meet the requirement as outlined in the strategic plan? Or are we reading it with an outline, with an eye as to the content?
I think it's read in the eye of that doesn't meet the strategic plan intention of the strategic plan. That would be for this group.
I mean, if you see where he slipped in a thing that says, by the way, I get $1 million raise, by all means point it out. But the primary concern is the strategic plan.
If it says doubling Kathy's salary, it's for the town, it's okay.
I've told you before, we'll triple it.
Nice. That's why I like you, Rory.
All right, so that was one thing. And then the other thing, I'm just going to share my screen real quick because this, I forgot to mention this, Kathy, when you were setting the agenda, but it is time to look at our meeting schedule for Ignore 2020, 2021.
2020 is a do-over.
I wish.
It is the same. It is the second Wednesday of each month, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any thing to say about it. If not, I will submit it to the clerks.
I'm good.
Do we have to make a motion to accept that or?
We can't.
Oh, that's right. We can. That's right. Yep.
This is a special meeting and it was not on the agenda.
Right.
So would you like me to make a motion to accept the calendar as presented?
No, we can't. We
Oh,
can't
that's right. Okay.
on it because we can't add it to the agenda.
Gotcha. We'll do it next month.
Yeah. The first meeting, if this is correct, we should still be fine and not needing a special meeting. It's 30 days, so we should be all right. But we'll just try to remember that for December.
Okay.
That's it. Those are the two things I had.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
Here.
Anne Marie?
No, ma'am.
Anything you'd like to like us to know?
No, it's just, sitting on the Board of Selectmen, you guys would come and present, or Kathy, you would come and present. And it's just nice to actually see a meeting where the work is being done and how the work is done and the collaboration of it all. It's great to see.
That's what our t-shirts say. Strategic Planning Committee. We get stuff done.
That's right. You guys do.
Our secret is the Christmas party,
Yeah.
which we'll have to plan for post-vaccine, I guess, or
Yeah.
summer so we can do it outdoors, but we'll get there.
It doesn't normally, our Christmas party doesn't normally happen until like April anyway, so
Yeah.
we're kind of bad at that.
Hopefully by then we'll have something, right?
That's right. But it's kind of become a thing for us that our Christmas party ends up in, mid-spring. All
Hopefully
right.
it'll be done by Zoom
Just-
meetings with them.
Yeah.
Just watch.
Seeing you guys.
All right. There are no other items for open discussion. I'll turn it to see if we have any public comment.
None.
And no public has joined us. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who was the first? Okay. Let's you, Stefan. All right. And a second.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes and we are done. 8:38 p.m. Not too bad. We got a lot done, guys.
Thanks, guys, for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye.